project that has already been approved, and it is for a flooring replacement. And we held off on getting bids on this until we also put up the ALF project to bid, because it made sense. If we're gonna get a flooring company in here, let's do as much of the flooring as possible. The original money set aside for this is $15,000, and that's already in the budget. That's already been approved. What we were looking at was this 15,000 is for OTPT and the first floor hallway that connects Maplewood to assisted living, and that's been approved at a VCT level of flooring, which is those vinyl tiles. They are expensive to maintain, but that's how we initially put it out. At this point, the nursing home has vinyl plank up to this hallway on the first and the second floor. And the assisted living is going to be put at vinyl planking as well, because it is going to be more cost effective to maintain. So it's more expensive to put in, it's less costly, the labor isn't there. What I'm proposing we do is in the bid project, we got bid responses to not only do the OTPT first floor hallway, but also the second floor hallway that also connects the nursing home to the assisted living up there. What would that cost to do vinyl planking? And that cost came out to $34,182 on the bid. Again, we have 15,000 already approved. And what I'd like to do is request commissioner support that I take the delta between those two, which is 19,182 from my remaining FF&E to complete that project and use vinyl plank flooring, a higher quality flooring, less cost to maintain. And it will then connect the nursing home to assisted living with all the same flooring and make sense that way.
Could you kindly remind us what FF&E refers to?
Fixtures, furniture, and equipment. So that was part of the leftover for the renovation monies.
Which has been approved in the past.
That's already been approved. So the money is all there, no taxes to be raised. It's just the FF&E you would traditionally think of furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So what I'm asking is,
Or we could call it now flooring fixtures.
So there's more than enough money left in that FF&E budget. And it would make sense to do this now, get the upgraded flooring, connect the assisted living and nursing home with all the same flooring style. So I'm looking for your approval.
So that nursing station is all. Wasn't that in that budget? That nursing station?
No, that was in the regular, you're talking, I think you're talking about assisted living.
Yeah.
And that was
That was last year.
last year's budget,
Separate, yes.
Yeah. so,
Because I know we skipped it.
We're used to pushing back our projects. Yes.
okay. Motion on the floor, Commissioner Wasmac.
Was it seconded? I didn't hear that.
Yes.
Okay. So are there any other things that we would do with the FF&E, and can the FF&E be used for anything else?
Are you talking about how we can use the money? Or are you talking about what other projects? Because
Well,
Jack,
a little bit of
What-
both.
And how much remains in the FF&E?
right now there is $37,734 remaining in that. And if you can keep in mind that when I put the project together, that would have been in 2018 or 19.
19.
I'm sorry, I don't recall the exact time frame. And part of the FF&E would have been for office replacement furniture as well. And this FF&E has come and gone back and forth many times. We had a lot of delays in our construction because of COVID and times when we had to wipe out the FF&E to deal with something. So the long story short is now that it's back, I'm just slowly taking some of the projects up. One of the things is the staff has just gotten used to all of the old desks that they already have. And so it makes sense to utilize this for a really good project that would upgrade the flooring, but decrease the cost of maintaining that flooring, pull the assisted living and nursing home together with that same flooring style. So it seems to me it would be a good use of that money and, I've already talked to Aaron, there's a couple of projects we talked about, we'll just remove from,
Mhm. Where are you going with this, Jack? I think I know where you're going, but where are you going?
Well, I like Bob's question of how much is actually left, when this will really, when done is done.
Yeah,
And, you know, I want to be able to have a sound backdrop against the huge increase in next year's budget.
Mhm.
So
yeah,
no particular direction, but I just,
okay.
Right, so after
You
that,
could mention
19, 13,000.
yeah, I know, well, that's
And
gonna
we have a habit of cleaning up, not letting stuff hang out there and utilizing it in other ways, and you've seen that through the years.
Oh, yeah, but still, it's just
So-
available for me.
Anything else, because there is a motion on the floor, anything you have? Okay, Jack, Commissioner Wasmac, your vote,
I,
Commissioner England,
Aye.
and Commissioner Clark. All right, we move on, anything else?
Nope, now we've got another,
Okay,
Sure, for our conversation, last week, with regards to the erosion control projects 1, 2, and 3, I reached out to our contractor. He says it's possible to do, the erosion control project 1 and 3 by December 31st.
mhm,
The second one, which involves asphalt, because the asphalt plants are closing, we don't think that we'd be able to complete that. So, the first, project 1, came to 12.8, and just to remind everybody what that was, is, we have a drainage line on the right side of the driveway that's eroding the bank.
yeah,
And then.
I'm just in my mind drawing it, that's all.
Yeah,
Don't mind me.
and then, let me pass this around. The photos aren't very good. If you actually look down into, down into the bank, the erosion is pretty extensive. That's right. And as it's eroding, it's actually encroaching onto the driveway. So at some point, if we had, that's right, we'll undermine the driveway. So, that would be the first one. Like I said, the second one, we're not able to complete, by December 31st. However, the third one is as you're, walking into the main entrance at Maplewood, on the left-hand side in between Maplewood and ALF, we have a roof drain that, when we have heavy rains, it discharges, we have an erosion issue. And what we're proposing to do is to install, it's really a square pipe. We're gonna connect it to the roof drain by the roof. That's gonna vertically, go down the wall. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna run, a subgrade, sewer line that will be installed into the catch basin, by the tree. That's right. And then we'll come back over with some loam. We'll repair the lawn and, the problem will be solved permanently. So anyways, so the first project was 12,800. Project 3 was 9,200, comes to $22,000. I spoke with Cheryl with regards to a contingency line, and we have the money. One of the things that I'm asking, one to move forward with 2 projects. The other one is because we're so close to December 31st, I'm asking that we waive the bidding process for this. If we do go into the bidding process, there wouldn't be a way to complete this by December 31st.
Well, how many calls have you already made?
On this, so originally I brought in Brazen Brothers, who looked at the project, and Houghton Company. Brazen Brothers, they looked at it, they were interested, and then when it came time for them to provide the quote, They decided, they didn't want to be involved with that. So I have one quote now, from Mark Houghton. And, that was for the 12,892.
We've used it before.
Mhm.
We've used it.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, many times. He's also the fire chief in Walpole. So, okay, so we need a motion. Can I just see that number so I can? We need a motion to accept, to move forward with project or to direct the facilities director of Maplewood Nursing Home to move forward project one, which is would be for $12,800, and project three, $9,200, for a total of $22,000 to get these projects done.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Wasback,
Aye.
Commissioner England, aye, Commissioner Clark. Here you go.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Scott, come on up. Join the table. For you that don't know, this is Scott Lyman's. He is what are you, the president? CEO,
CEO.
CEO of Smart
Mike
Ride.
by.
They have been a partner with us when it has come to wheelchair services for Cheshire County. The growth and what they've taken on in that short period of time has been remarkable. And so he and I met this week. They've had an opportunity to come about. I want him to explain that. I'm gonna hand out a document that he put together. And what he's asking for from us. And as you remember, we are partners with him because part of our contract was to develop a wheelchair service and an ambulatory service, that get those people from here to there. And we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. We didn't want to develop something. We wanted to see something that was already out there. Scott's had a great program. It's only gotten better and bigger. And what they do is critical to what we do overall for interfacility transfers and 911 calls, because if they aren't there, if they hadn't grown, we would be taking a lot of these calls, and that would be taking an ambulance offline for 911s and interfacility transfers. So it's been an incredible, strong partnership. We meet on a semi-regular basis, and so I'll let Scott go from there.
Thank you. So just kind of an overview of where we're at. We're coming up on our third year. We went from starting with 2 vans, we're now up to 6. And we have 4 of the 6 on the road on any given day with a maintenance rotation and a spare backup unit each day. Most of our trucks are averaging between 160 and 200 miles a day for mileage. Our monthly fuel cost is around 760 gallons a month. So multiply that times 3. We currently have 10 staff. We have 3 that are in the application process. We have 1 that's just received an offer yesterday. So that's where we're at with that. We have a large volume of Medicaid associated transports. So those go through a broker system. Of those transports, we see about 1/3 of the remuneration that we would expect from private pay. So there's a cost that comes along with that. We also have a large volume of skilled nursing facility transports that we do. We did a couple of things with that. We developed a collaborative agreement with all of the facilities within 15 miles of Cheshire Medical Center to provide them some cost sharing benefit. So they all have a flat rate specific to their facility that is for their return transports for their patients who are admitted for a skilled rehab visit for orthopedic reasons or things of that nature. With that came the billing for them. That's also a slower process for them to get their things back into us. We have a very close working relationship with Cheshire EMS as well as Cheshire Hospital. I speak with leadership from each facility very regularly. The folks at Cheshire EMS, it's probably a couple of times a week. And then we've started to collaborate with EMS as well as Keen Fire to look at how we can better cover a lot of the skilled nursing facility related issues that are occurring as far as transport times, request times, things like that. There was previous to us a frequency in which 911 would be called for a non-urgent transport based on the need for that transport. That's something that we're now able to cover. We are 24/7. We do, actually, the running joke has been we should move to a night shift because everybody that's on call at night has had at least 2 or 3 call outs to get somebody moved around. We are working with all of the facilities in the region. We've not had any huge hiccups with any of those things. Like I said, we're averaging around 45 to 50 transports a day. Our busiest day was 63, so that was a very long day. Yeah. So we move a lot of people. So we generally have 4 on the road. Because of our maintenance rotation, and we always try and keep 1 in reserve. So if something were to happen, we could immediately replace that with something that's
But
available.
remember this, when we first started, you were averaging about 40 runs a week.
A week,
A week.
Yeah.
Now he's averaging what, 50
a day.
a day?
Yeah.
And it's made a huge difference to the city of Keene, to Cheshire EMS. I mean, the impact is you can't even fathom what it means to these services.
And I have an amazing team. Most of my folks have a public safety or healthcare background. And they, it's been great. The ability to be able to.
Are they mostly, drivers, or they have specialty training?
So a bulk of them came with special training previously, so that's been helpful, but we do require a pretty extensive list of training. Some of that also mirrors what the EMS folks get, because if there's a large scale incident, we're incorporated into that. So I want my folks to be prepared to be able to work with the incident command structure, and things of that nature, to be able to.
Are they CPR certified?
CPR certified, absolutely. CPR,
AED?
first aid, AED, bloodborne pathogens, hazardous materials, infection control, customer satisfaction, passenger assistance and safety standards, passenger securement. And there's a place called the Q String Academy, which is one of the vendors that provides a certain product that we send everybody through. We do have goals currently for all of our staff to meet some new credentialing standards, with our goal to be the first non-emergent transport company in New Hampshire to meet the NEMTAC credentialing standard.
Do you have AEDs in the vehicle?
We do. They're something that we're working towards. They're costly.
Yes.
There was a effort through the rural initiative for EMS to be able to get those at one point. I think that's gone by the wayside. Nobody about those, but it's certainly an interest for us. Yeah. And all of our folks are CPR certified AED. We do stop the bleed. Fortunately, I'm also an EMS and a CPR instructor, so I can do most of those courses. We just partnered with a group called Halifax EMS Education. They're actually out of Georgia, but to do some of the securement training. So I became an instructor for that. So we'll be able to credential for those things.
Where is your office and your garage located?
We don't have a garage. We do have an office. I would love to have a garage. We are on Roxbury Street in the old Miller Forge building.
Okay.
So, and I grew up as a dirty Roxbury Street kid, so I'm across the street from the house I grew up on, so.
I grew up going to church in Dallas.
It's basically clean now.
Yes, that's true. And we've got industrial hygiene standards that we meet and things of that nature too. Our most recent venture that has been brought to us is, if you're familiar with any of the Medicare Advantage plans, the Humana program has approved a benefit for transportation in New Hampshire, which, based on them coming to us with a request for proposal, we're looking at an increase monthly of around 300 passengers. So this is a huge access increase for a lot of our rural citizens who haven't had access to healthcare previously. And which is our primary mission, has always been access to healthcare. The rural nature of what happens for us creates a significant disparity in somebody being able to receive their healthcare benefits. And while we've done a great job of looking at ways to bring healthcare to residents, there's just not enough. There's not enough staff to commit to that. There's not enough funding to commit to it, like all of those challenges. And on top of that, the increasing acuity of the rural health population needing to get to the medical center for x-rays, labs, follow-ups, continued care. The biggest part of all of this is there's no way for them to get back and forth if somebody isn't there to do it. And we hear that story every day, every day. So with that increase in volume, I was not prepared. I had no knowledge that this was something that was going to be coming our way. And to be able to meet that need, I need to increase my staff and our ability to provide that service.
So, if you don't mind
Go
cutting in,
ahead.
what he's looking for is two levels. One is to increase the overall monthly, and that would have to go through the budget process. He's aware of that. And then there's also a startup, one-time startup, help. And that would be for, so the increase would be what we're currently paying would be an added $800 a month on, which is about $9,600 a year. And then a one-time startup of $30,000, which I would recommend, of course, it's up to you, I would recommend that we look at the Hemingway Fund because this is exactly what the Hemingway Fund was put in place for and utilize that. And currently, the Hemingway Fund is at 100.
I actually just sent you a text, whatever I'm gonna tell you exactly right now.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. So it's in the ballpark.
It's still around the same amount.
Yeah. So it's over 100, it would be over $100,000.
Yes.
And for us to utilize 30,000, and we haven't received this year's disbursement. So that will push it back up. We get if you remember, on a yearly basis, we receive from the foundation, monies. It's probably right around
About that.
about $26,000 a year we receive from the foundation. And it goes to every town. It goes to if we can use it for every town. It's crazy, but Marlboro, because Marlboro gets their own monies because the individual was from Marlboro.
Yeah.
And so, but we do have the monies to be able to do that, and it's for healthcare. It's about helping people, especially elderly people in our community. And so we've used this in the past in this form.
So the balance is $132,000, of which if we provided 30, it would bring it down to 102. But then again, we haven't received this year's disbursement from the trust, so it would kind of reinstate the balance as to where it is
So
today.
that would be my recommendation. And then the added $800 would be that we'd have to go through you'd have to approve it through your process. We would have to then do that through through the delegation.
Oh, the $800
Yes.
a month, that was, yes.
Yes.
What's the last thing you said?
I will tell you right
It was
now.
for something kid at work. It was
Well, there's some for them,
100 nights.
100 nights.
And they've asked us for help with families, staying in hotels. We've used it, it's like $9,000. Well, that's what it's. Yes,
Yeah,
Jack.
Let me ask a couple of questions. Scott, these proposed was estimated 300 new passengers. Would they strictly be Humana subscribers, and where are they going to come from? What are they doing now?
So currently, my understanding is this is a new benefit, so I'm not sure that it's being utilized. The information that I got was from the new broker for the new program that indicated based on their subscription and the acuity of the that are under that subscription, that those are transports that they've been either reimbursing family for or outside contracted agencies coming in from like Massachusetts and Connecticut.
Okay, sounds, makes sense. So is their reimbursement rate adequate? And the second layer of that is, are they willing to give you an amount of money regardless of ridership as a fallback to making the investment worthwhile? So if they're saying 300 and they're giving you a certain amount, are they giving you a guaranteed amount to preserve some level of service preparedness, even if 1 month or another they don't show up? You know what I mean?
Right, so I appreciate your question. So two portions that I can answer to that without any research is the contract that we have negotiated has an increase in what they will pay for the level of service for the services that we provide this year and next year. I have negotiated rates that are a little bit higher than what the Medicaid rates are, but again, it's a Medicare funded program, so they only have a little bit of wiggle room with that. There is no stipend or service provision monies or anything like that. It's just a contracted rate.
Okay, and I wouldn't want you to talk about anything in public that from a pricing point of view, obviously. But would your agreement with them be subject to your own availability of supplies and people and vehicles? I mean, if they're not going to guarantee some sort of minimum coverage for the infrastructure, then I just as an aside, I don't know how you could guarantee that the service could always be guaranteed to be available. Do you know what I mean?
Right. There is a percentage that comes along with the contract of agreement for transport, which is, a certain percentage of what is proposed to us, we would have to accept instead of decline. It is a relatively reasonable number based on what their request is. And I don't see that that's anything that would change, and that's not uncommon. We have the same thing with our Medicaid contracts.
Okay, that's good. So my other thought was, I'll just throw that out there. The 30,000, I'll say capital contribution is one thing. There's no reason why the $800 a month couldn't come out of Hemingway.
True.
And we could either parse it out on a monthly basis or simply make periodic payments in whatever way finance thought it would be useful. So I don't know why necessarily all of that needs to any of that needs to go through the budget process.
That's true. And just for your knowledge, commissioners have the ability to utilize the Hemingway fund without going through the process of the budget process.
And again, we're looking at a multi-million-dollar increase in taxes to be raised, and I'm just getting profoundly sensitive to how we're going to manage that without cutting services and denying a ton of requests. So, we've got a funnel to go through in terms of the budget, and I'm sensitive about diverting any expenses that are within our means in order to help.
I'm fine with that. And it would be $39,600.
Right.
Well, right, I mean, but I'm not sure that we advance, obviously the 30,000 we'd advance, but the 9,000 we would.
You can, yeah.
Present on a monthly basis.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, in a way, it's like however we fund any other outside agency, so. It
Yeah.
just come from Hemingway.
Just so you know, I mean, everybody knows, if you do the math, if they were doing 40 runs a month, right? Is that right? 40 runs, no, 40
Okay.
runs a week, times 52 is like 2,000 something runs.
You're talking about previous.
Okay, and then we last knew they were up to 30 to 35 runs a day, which equals 12,775. Now they're saying they're up to 50 runs a day, which is 18,250 runs a year. So I think this is and when it comes to utilizing monies in a way that are thoughtful and smart and in the best interest of the county, this is one of the best ways that we could be doing it. And so I would support this, support moving this forward with your vote and do whatever we can to continue our relationship with Smart Right, because they've proven time and again to be a worthwhile partner.
Scott, do you anticipate that this would raise any concerns with respect to the joint funding that Cheshire Medical Center gives you?
I don't believe so. We're actually entering into the negotiation phase for that too. And part of our discussion is gonna be what our volume looks like coming out of there, because that continues to increase. So I think we're in a good position to continue with them.
And is your batting average with respect to servicing the needs of the hospital still close to 100%?
It is 100%.
Okay. Well, I think it's great. And I actually, Scott, I need to talk with you offline at some point.
Sure.
About another thing, but I would be perfectly fine with pulling the whole thing out of the Hemingway fund. I mean, we've got that money sitting there. There's no regular or obvious plan. And I think about the intention of the purpose of those funds, and we sometimes struggle with what to do with them. And I don't think that in that setting it helps anybody.
Correct.
Just a quick additional question. For your full-time drivers, do you provide benefits, health insurance?
So we're looking to start our first 2 full-time drivers in January, but I will tell you that for what we have for our part-time drivers currently, while it's not a health insurance benefit, we do provide and cover the cost of a direct access healthcare provider. So we've partnered with an organization out of Peterborough, Hearthside Family Health. And we cover the cost for an employee and 50% for their spouse for membership to that program. It's been super beneficial. It's very, very responsive, very, very good for your kind of everyday medical needs.
And I'm sorry, what I just didn't hear, Scott. What was this healthcare variant?
Hearthside Family Health.
Is it like a concierge medical service?
Sort of. So it's Dr. Clennell and Siobhan Martin, and they run an office. It's like your general family practice. They do everything from flu shots to referrals and everything in between, and help with medication management and all of those things.
Oh, interesting. No.
Does that cover though any diagnostic tests, x-rays, CAT scans?
It does not.
It does not.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine it could, because they don't provide that directly.
No, they do some lab series and they'll do those in-house, but anything beyond that.
Not many in it.
All right.
Might you consider down the road expanding for health benefits?
It is a consideration for us, and if we move to our first full-time employees in January, we'll have to.
Okay, good.
So I would make a motion to take all of the requests out of the Hemingway fund and leave it up to Chris and Cheryl to iron out the details as to the distribution.
So, yeah, and what we would tell you is that there would be one check for the 30,000, and then the monthly that you're getting would just increase by that amount.
Mhm.
Okay,
Great.
I'll second that.
okay,
And so beyond the 30,000, we'll just be looking forward to the 800 a month for
mhm,
years to come.
mhm.
So then Cheryl, you would just do a journal entry to move the Hemingway funds into something else and just burn through it.
So, yeah, well, what we'll do is I'll increase the actual check that goes out on a monthly basis by 800. It will be set up as a receivable due from Hemingway, and then I'll transfer the money in periodically
Okay,
from
sounds good.
Hemingway back to the general fund.
Okay, there's a motion, it's been seconded. Any other questions? Seeing none, Commissioner Wasmac,
Aye.
Commissioner Clark,
Uh,
Commissioner England.
I,
We'll see this.
Thank you.
All right,
I
thank you.
appreciate your time.
I almost did.
Have a good day.
Thanks,
Thank
you
you.
too.
I'll be in touch when we have that. We'll do the disbursement and get that once I have it.
You take care.
nice project.
Nice, thank you. We work hard. Take care.
Okay, moving on, Patrick.
Good morning, everybody.
Hey, before Scott leaves the room, can he confirm?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, did he? Okay. I just wanted to check, double check his cell phone number, but I can get it offline. Never mind. Moving on.
Okay, thank you. Nice to see everybody again. Just to give you a quick update on Cheshire Justice program and process that's been going on. I take it you got the reports that I sent out. We still work closely with our criminal legal system. The referrals are not coming in at a rapid rate for any number of reasons. Again, the types of issues that the incidents that are being dealt with, and of course, the involvement of the victims in the process. As you know, restorative justice begins with the needs of the person who was harmed. So since January, I've had 5 total referrals through the criminal legal system. 3 of these were incidents involving domestic violence. And as you can appreciate, that would be a very sensitive issue for the individual who was harmed. 2 of those have been resolved with restorative intervention and the criminal legal system. And by that, I mean, we went through the circle process, met with the person harmed, and the person responsible came to a point where the parties went through the circle. And in one case in particular, the person who was harmed said, I'd still like this to stay within the criminal legal system. So refer it back to the prosecutor and the public defender, and they resolved it. Last check-in on that particular incident, things have worked out very well with the family that was involved. The second one of the DV cases, without going into many details, we worked with both parties who were living in the same home. The individual responsible for the harm committed another crime while going through the process. And that incident resulted in the restorative process being stopped for the needs of the person who was harmed and referred back, and it's back within the criminal legal system. However, with any restorative process, especially one involving relationship harm, which is a lot of domestic violence, of course, the invitation stays open. I reached out to the individual who was the harmed party to let that person know that if at some point down the road she would like to continue with the restorative process for herself, that invitation stays open. The other 2 that are still ongoing, one is a DV case that's still working with us, but going through in conjunction with the
DVK,
domestic violence. Sorry, Bob.
what's
DV case.
DVK?
Yeah, I don't like to use that terminology, but it's a DV referral, so. Yeah,
DVK.
no, I try to reduce the number of acronyms in my presentations as greatly as possible, so thank you for that. So the other 2, we had 2 burglaries. One was resolved very successfully with the individual and the parties that were harmed, went through the full restorative process. Restitution was paid, and some of the objects that were stolen were returned. The individuals who were the harmed party in that one were very pleased with the overall process, as they didn't want to see the person responsible, end up with a criminal record of a felony level charge in that particular. So that one worked out very well. The other burglary case, is still ongoing. And logistically, it's a challenging one because the incident in question happened in Hinsdale. The individual who was responsible for the harm resides in Brattleboro. And so now we have jurisdiction. So I've been working with both the public defender, the prosecutor, and the individual who is involved to see what type of resolution we can come up with. I'm not sure it will resolve itself through our restorative process simply because of the two states being involved, the location of it. A couple of other things in the report. I'd like to bring it up to date on the Cheshire County House of Corrections. We've done some really great work with the residents of the jail here. Restorative learning dialogues have been offered since last summer, 23. These are voluntary educational programs, so not mandated for individuals to come through this process. And I, along with Leaf and Sandy Swinburne, two of our volunteers, I co-facilitate these on a weekly basis. They go from 8 to 10 weeks. We work with the female population, and then we'll offer them again for the male population. These have been absolutely, and I'm going to be blowing our own horn here, but they've been absolutely worthwhile and beneficial for the individuals involved, because not on more than one occasion, when they are participating in the restorative learning dialogues, they've said to us, when they're in this session, they don't feel like they're incarcerated. Because the work that we're doing with them is very much self-reflective. It's about becoming accountable, looking within, developing a healthy self-concept, learning to communicate feelings and needs, learning to set some goals for when you return to the community. But the accountability piece, which takes up about 5 weeks, these learning dialogues, it's learning how to acknowledge responsibility for one's actions, which is very difficult to do in a jail because you're still in pretrial status. So we don't focus on the specific incidents that got people inside here, but we talk about acknowledging responsibility for behavior in our daily lives. And the stories they share aren't relevant, particularly to the situation that got them here. So we go through acknowledging responsibility, acknowledging impact, expressing remorse, doing sorry and repairing the harm, and then committing not to do similar harm again. And the final phase of all of this is learning to reintegrate with our community. And I'd like to give you a quick story. I was in court on Monday this week at a plea and sentencing hearing for one of the ladies who went through our restorative learning dialogues exactly a year ago. And at that hearing on Wednesday, we went through the process and the progress she's made over that time. We went through the restorative learning dialogues here at the jail, did very, very well. Entered a rehab program, residential rehab for some substance abuse issues up in Manchester, did very well. Came back in the early part of this year and was assigned to our behavioral health court and worked very closely and very well with Judy Gallagher, and maintained connection with me, which I call our restorative reintegration process. 2 weeks ago, after working with Doug and Captain Coziera here, she joined our restorative learning team as one of our co-facilitators. So she's now coming back into the Cheshire County House of Corrections as a co-facilitator and learning the skills of being a restorative practitioner. Fantastic story. As I said to the judge, what a difference a year makes. And on Monday, she had her electronic bracelet removed. The sentencing was entered, terms much more favorable to her progress and rehabilitation over time. And one of her goals in going forward in her life is to become a restorative practitioner, recovery coach, helping women who are incarcerated and coming back into the community. That's a fantastic testimony to this process. And I do want to acknowledge and appreciate the work that Doug has done and Captain Cozier for taking this on, because when we first approached this project, there was some reluctance and reticence because, well, we like to have them out for a year, we like to have, but this individual is working under the mentorship of myself and Leaf and others. But more importantly, she's demonstrated in her efforts to restore, what did I call it the other day in court? To repair the harm done to her relationship with herself, her family, and her community. And I just want to make sure that gets on the record here, because that's the model for restorative work in prisons across the country in some places, to have the folks who are incarcerated facilitating this process as part of their rehabilitation process. A couple of other things. Keene High School continue to work closely with their restorative learning center. I'm in contact with them on a monthly basis. That project is working very well in talking with the folks that are in charge of that. And that restorative learning center is a shift in culture for school to go from a punitive mindset of in-school suspension or expelling students to teaching and working with students to become restorative in the sense that they can reflect on the behavior, acknowledge responsibility, acknowledge impact, and then do what needs to be done with support of staff to repair the harm, keeping them in a learning environment and culture. I have an intern from Keene State. She and I working together since September, and we're starting a whole new series of restorative learning circles at the high school in December for a group of female students, I think freshman students there. And their whole emphasis on these is learning to relate to one another and to communicate in a respectful, restorative manner. So I'm very excited about that. Keene State College, I think I mentioned to you recently, did a 4-hour restorative learning circle with the Division III men's hockey team about creating a restorative team culture. And the joke was, well, why are you working with hockey players? Well, if you can start some of these dialogues around restorative principles and practices before the season starts, it's an element of building a healthy, responsible, respectful team culture. And in following up with Bobby recently, we're going to do a series of these now throughout the season, just to keep them focused on how to be, and again, if you want to put it in a very simple manner, how to be in right relationship with yourself, your teammates, your coaches, and your community, both on the ice and more importantly, off the ice when you're out in the community. So I'm excited about that.
How do you measure success there? Your teeth, can you?
Well, the teeth will come out during the game. The measurement of success will be the number of players that show up in the following sessions and share examples of how they're using this or not in their daily. What the real test will be when an incident happens, because the foundation now is in place. And if something should happen, and that the team needs to come together with the coaches, with the college, with themselves to come up and repair the harm that was done, that will be a Terry. So I'll let you know at the end of the season. Couple of other things, and you can read the report. NCVP, they've invited me to serve on their board of directors, and just joined them last week. Looking forward to bringing restorative practices into the culture and into the mission of that organization. Over the summer, did a couple of exciting initiatives. As you can see, one was creating Friendships for Peace, where co-facilitated 2 circles with some Arab and Israeli high school students. As you know, in the Middle East and the conflict here, that was an absolutely beautiful experience, because you have these teenage girls, Israeli and Arabs. They come to New Hampshire for a period of 3 weeks. They live together in the same home, get to know one another. When we did our restorative circles around that, one of the most poignant rounds was to talk about what it was like to become your best friend, how you became friends. And these girls would share stories about meeting someone, Arab, meeting an Israeli in school and saying, when I first met her, I didn't like her at all. What happened? How did you develop that relationship? The interesting thing about that, we did one circle was done up at the camp in Get to Town in New Hampshire. The second circle was done at the State House. Joe Shapiro arranged some space at the State House, so it was pretty neat to sit in a circle with these 10 students in the State House up in Concord. Friends of Treatment Court, involved in working with them as well. Behavioral Health Court, I gave you a little bit of update on that, working with them in terms of community service outreach. I'm doing it, I'm co-facilitating with LEAF on Sunday, a circle here in Keene, sponsored by the Friends of the Keene Public Library. Working with the Trauma Responsive Monadnock group. And I've also been invited through TREC. There's a big community dialogue coming up on the 21st November around the bullying behavior in our community and some of the violence in our community. I've been asked to help co-facilitate and work with them on that, which should be exciting. So the community outreach piece, and Jack, I think you brought that up last week when we presented on the budget. The community outreach piece of the restorative justice process is growing and is being well received in the community, and I'm very excited about that. Finally, and then we can open up for questions. I think in my little report, I sent a little article, I don't know if you got it, about human connection as contraband in our jails and prison system. Fantastic article, and I encourage everybody to read it. Because as we look at our jails and our correction systems across the state and across the country, we've implemented policies, procedures, and technology that has at times interfered with that human connection. And in our restorative learning dialogues, when we finish an 8-week series with folks, our neighbors who are incarcerated here, one of the things that I always ask them, what was most important for you? What was most valuable for you during these restorative learning dialogues? And 90% of the respondents will say what they value most is that people from outside the community, the Leif Seligmans of the world, Sandy Swinburne, and now our newest member, have taken the time to come in and to spend time with them. That human connection is critical, and they really appreciate it. And so, in finishing up my little monologue, I do want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to bring the restorative principles and practices to a broader community outside just the criminal legal system. Dr. Bob, thank you very much for listening.
Do the relationships between the Sandy Swinburnes and the clients and the Siegelmans, do they sometimes continue socially or occasional contact after the formal relationship ends?
They do, Bob, but that's an invitation that each of the volunteers can put out to these folks, right?
Mhm.
Typically, here, like in the county jail, we have a number of folks that are federal inmates. So when they're released, they head off. Those in Cheshire County, yes, if they wish to maintain that contact, they can. I always tell them, if they're in Cheshire County, I let them know where I am. And if they're going through a probation or they're in behavioral health court or drug court after they've been released, to come see me all the time. And a number of them have. And as you can anticipate, when people get released from the correction center and they return to their homes, they're moving on, right? But the invitation is always open.
Yeah, nice.
I just think about where we were 2 years ago, when we set you free.
Yeah, well, actually, it was April of 23, right? Just a year and a bit.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
The impact already we're seeing.
Yeah,
Broad part of the community. Not just people who get in nurses, but into schools.
I agree. And now that Doug has joined us, the other thing and Doug, I did sing your praises about our friend who's joined us, our restorative team.
I heard.
Yeah.
Listening in.
Oh, you heard. The other thing in working with Doug, I extended the invitation, and I'm working on getting a sense of extending an invitation to the staff here at the jail if there's an interest and need in learning about restorative practices and sitting in circle here with us as part of an orientation or ongoing professional development. Because a number of the COs, when I meet them on the pod, have expressed some interest about restorative approaches. So I'm excited about that. Flyer hasn't come out yet because I haven't gotten around to it just yet. The other thing about, and I'm glad you came in, Doug, because I forgot to mention it, that individual who has joined our restorative learning team as a circle keeper is also part of a working group in the community. And Doug's part of it, and Chris McLaughlin and the judges. There's a group coming together with Suzanne, working on formulating a grant for a pretrial services and diversion program for adults in Cheshire County. And this individual, who's got lived experience with the system, is a part of that team as well. And it's another indication of her initiative to reintegrate with the community. And that's been really interesting to sit in a meeting with her, with lawyers and judges and people who have seen her go through that legal system in a different way. So, all right, that's enough for my soapbox presentation this morning. I do appreciate it. If you have any other questions.
Just a quick one for me is that, are you continually working to see if we can get farther into the schools? And not just the Keene, but into Monadnock, into Conant, and lower, like trying to get into the elementary schools so that this we can teach them at a younger age so that as they move through this strength.
That's coming, Chris.
Is it?
Yeah, that's coming. And I think this community conversation is coming up, the latter part of the month will be part of that as well. Yeah.
Okay.
And I know you're big on it, and I know you have a contact and a source in the school system outside. I'll tap into you.
Okay. Okay,
All right. Well, thank you very much.
thank you. See you
Good for
again.
you.
Okay, next up. Yes, I'm ready for you.
Okay.
While she's coming up, I'll just give them. I'm just gonna dive into mine while Danielle's coming up, from her department. The conference, don't forget, this week. Davis, if you can send out anything if it's not already been sent out, or resend it if it's not, about rooms or anything like that.
Yep.
Just to make sure you have everything going up. But just a reminder, I will be joining you guys on Monday, probably instead of Sunday, because I'm gonna be taking Monday and working on the budget. So I'll join you probably around 5, 6 o'clock.
So on the Sunday,
On Monday, yeah,
so on the Sunday, you'll presumably be meeting for dinner up there someplace.
yeah, they have options up there.
Okay.
So. Not a lot, but they do.
Are others going up on Sunday, or
Yeah, there's a good majority of people that
I'm
go,
planning to
yeah.
Sunday afternoon?
Just,
Did you say, Chris, Davis sent out information about?
no, if Davis has, then I was gonna have him resend it. If he hasn't, he'll send it out now. So you have that.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. I haven't had internet service for the last 30 hours, so.
Okay. And I can tell you, I'm just gonna keep, unless you want to stop.
That's fine, if she's here,
Okay, let's
either
do
way
it.
is fine.
You know, mine will take.
Come on in, Daniel. So now,
Yeah,
all right. You may know everyone, but maybe not, so.
I only know you by name. I'm Cheryl Trombley from the finance office.
Nice to meet you. I know you by name as well.
That's what.
Nice to meet you.
Dave Springsteen.
Bob England?
Thank you.
what do we call you? Something elect. What is it?
Commissioner,
Commissioner elect, that's it. Claudia Stewart.
Nice to meet you.
And you and I know each other, and Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Jack's on the phone, and Kim May,
Okay.
HR.
Wonderful.
Okay, so. I asked Danielle to join us for one section, which is to do with the. Mental health acuity, which I'll touch on and then let her kind of give you a better sense of that theme, but starting with a few other themes and topics that I think would be of interest, but as always, if I don't cover something and you want to hear about a different area or topic, just let me know. If you want to follow along, federal inmate population, running so similarly, maybe a little behind last year, but still well ahead of budget. There was a little bit of dip in the census when the court system underwent in Burlington or Rutland, forget which, Rutland, I think, had a judge vacancy and sort of slowed down some case processing, but we're back up into the low 40s as an average census. And the revenue is running well ahead of budget again this year. I've mentioned this before, we started a process of applying for and seeking higher rates of reimbursement, both for the per diem daily bed rate from the feds and hourly transport rates. We're starting with a proposal to go from 105 daily per diem to 120, and from our current hourly rate of 30 to 40. Don't know if that'll be a negotiation or what that process will look like. It's been 14 years since we had any rate changes.
Some of the bill.
Well, given that 14 years and no rate increases, and 14 years ago, the budget at the DOC was about half what it is, so our expenses are. And this is nowhere close to requesting a 100% increase, but we'll see how it goes, and don't worry, we won't sink the ship in terms of but
It's a negotiation.
it's a negotiation. They need us, Vermont especially. They really do need us.
Yeah.
We deserve to not lose money when we do transports minimally. That's something that irks me. Staff and staffing, there's no leadership or admin changes in the last 6 months. Current correctional officer picture is that all 44 of the frontline positions are filled. The recruitment and retention picture is a few less applicants. If we look at year to date, this year versus last year, there's 84 applicants versus 102 for the same period last year. Only 11 terminations in the officer ranks, and of those, only 5 were voluntary. That's a big change in terms of retention, as it had been running in the 50% range for the prior 2 fiscal years. So that's all good. And again, the market wage adjustment is, in my mind, undoubtedly made a difference, especially in the retention side. Nursing is also generally better. We have 3 regular full-time nurses, plus Becca as the nursing supervisor. We have 6 per diems. We think we're able to end the use of a traveler, although I just heard that a per diem we were gonna start yesterday needs to postpone or start, and I haven't yet learned about how long and what that's gonna look like. But, and Becca's out actually with COVID.
How many nurses are RNs versus LPNs?
Only a couple are RNs. Becca's an RN. I think there's only a couple, most are LPNs. And then just want to talk about medical services in general. They're both, well, first, the National Commission on Correctional Healthcare. We are going to be accredited. We were granted provisional accreditation. And we need to submit a plan of corrective action on just 5 out of something like 140 standards. And those are all achievable. So we expect to have a 3-year accreditation.
Yes.
And then there would be another site visit in 2027. Wanted to talk about theme medical services rising acuity, both on the medical physical health side and then mental health side. Do you have some numbers in front of you comparing 2024, just looking at one aspect of it, the number of unscheduled transports, meaning emergencies or urgent situations where we needed to bring inmates up to the ER. In 2023, the whole year, we only had 17 occasions, 17 instances of that. And through yesterday or today, we're at 44 this year. And so the medical acuity is certainly rising. On the psychiatric or mental health side, I touched a little bit on this in the budget meeting. We're also seeing an overall increase in the number of inmates with significant mental health issues. Trying to measure that a little bit. We used to talk about 50% of the inmates being on a psychotropic med, in other words, a mental health med. Back 10 years ago when Barnes Peterson was here before Danielle, we're now at probably 90%, maybe higher, that are on a psychiatric med. That's sort of a general barometer of changing population. Also, the number of times that Danielle's needing to refer people to either New Hampshire Hospital or the secure psychiatric unit, which involves inmates that are significantly more acutely mentally ill. To meet the criteria for either of those circumstances, they are very unwell and almost never able to be housed in our general population. So they're very time intensive, not only for the correctional staff to manage, but also for Danielle. And she'll touch on that a little bit in a minute. But I think last year there were only 2, and we're at 6 or 7 already this year, counting the ones in.
4 complete and then 2 in process right
Yeah.
now.
And this is in part why the recommendation I have in the budget to try to find a psychiatric nurse practitioner for about 10 hours a week. So let me just have Danielle speak a little bit from her perspective about the mental health acuity. I think it'll be interesting and informative. Danielle's been in this role for, I think, 4 years.
Yeah.
She's actually uniquely the only person to ever do all of our mental health at one time or another. She was originally actually 4, if you count being an intern. And she was a substance abuse recovery counselor. She was the case manager for a while, right when I took over as superintendent. And now 4 years is the mental health clinician and the head of that department. So I'll let you share your perspective on this.
So yeah, as Doug has mentioned, our acuity has definitely grown, I would say post-COVID. It definitely started trickling in 2021. But these past couple of years, it's been really concerning. Also, as Doug mentioned, we've had an increase in people going to the state hospital, which is a really time intensive process. I recently just got approval, I guess you could say, to do the IEs on my own. However, before it would involve Monadnock Family Services and having to bring them to Cheshire Medical Center, which could sometimes take a couple weeks to arrange. So the process itself is now easier, but the amount of time that I have to spend kind of trying to stabilize them and keeping them contained while they're here is still very time consuming. And then just the amount of people, like Doug mentioned, on psychiatric medication has grown significantly. So right now, I pretty much live in our R&D unit, which is where people are first coming in, trying to kind of stabilize people in that first week to 2 week period. And as of right now, I have a total of 5 very acutely psychotic and mentally ill inmates in the facility. We have 3 in R block and then 2 in F block.
Are they in the population?
No,
Are
so
they, all right.
yeah, they're too psychotic or paranoid or behavioral to go into general population. So they take up a large majority of my day, meeting with them, talking about coping skills, working with the staff on how to kind of manage them safely. One of them is on a 2-officer escort, basically, because when he comes out, he can be kind of unpredictable. We also have one of the ladies is pretty unpredictable right now. And then the other one is just so paranoid that she's actually refusing to go out to GPOP. She's refusing to meet with me. She's refusing to really do anything. And ironically enough, her bail order has been changed. So I do a lot of communicating with the courts around bail orders for the hospital and who's appropriate and who's not. The bail order was just changed out of Jaffrey to allow her to go to the community with mental health treatment. However, she's adamant she doesn't have any mental health issues. So she's just sitting here, like, just indefinitely until she decides she wants to get some mental health. All she needs is 1 appointment and then she could be considered for release. She's so paranoid and mentally ill that she's choosing to stay here instead. She's isolated in a cell 24 hours a day. She doesn't come out for her cell time. They get the 1 hour out still. But a lot of times they don't even take it or they're too at risk to take it safely. So it's sad to see, and then a challenge to kind of manage them when she sees me as the target. You know, she thinks that I'm trying to medicate her and commit her and do all these things, and it is a little confusing to them. I do a lot of talking about medications, however, I'm not the prescriber. Our prescriber, as you probably know, is only here twice a week. So I introduce myself as the liaison between the inmates and the doctor. I explain to them that I do the assessment. I talk a lot about the medications, but then I pass it along to the PA. A lot of them that are in that acutely psychotic state can't really understand what that means. So they see me as the person trying to kind of force medication on them or whatever the case may be. Not all of them are paranoid about medications. Some of them are paranoid about other things, and it's a little smoother. Like one of the guys in our block right now is convinced that he has subcutaneous identifiers controlling his mind. And he thinks certain inmates are gang members with his family and making child pornography and all kinds of things. So each one of them are very uniquely different. And thankfully I know almost all of them because I've worked here for so long in so many different roles that I already have that rapport with them. I already know their history when they come in. And some of them get better or worse over, throughout their different incarcerations.
So Doug or Danielle, let me ask you a question. How does this relate to the competency, which is to say, if they're that far out in left field, how could they even be convicted of a crime, which makes me wonder then why they're even there?
Yeah, so that is a big piece here. Almost all of them are going through competency proceedings while they're here. And the problem is that they are found incompetent, and then there's that 1 year restorability period where they then have a hearing a year after being found incompetent to determine if they've been restored or not. And if they're considered dangerous or the court has any concerns about their behavior, they often keep them here throughout that process. And it's really not an ideal place to keep somebody who's already mentally ill. Throughout that process, they tend to get worse as a result of the incarceration. Well,
So
the
what-
state hospital,
Yep. Yep.
the
go ahead,
state
that's all.
hospital is the place. However, they only keep them for, 3 days to a week until they're stabilized according to their criteria before they either send them back or release them back to the community, depending on what the bail order states.
Yeah, so competency, as you probably know, is more a legal measure in question. As the defendant have the ability to understand the charges against them and to work cooperatively with their attorney in their own defense. But absolutely, they're someone who's as psychotic as these people are, is very often not competent. And the process drags out a very long time, and the inmates get stuck here. And I went to testify in Concord before a committee that was a study committee on the issue of competency about 6 weeks ago. And interestingly, both Health and Human Services and the secure psychiatric unit at the prison and New Hampshire Hospital, they all perceive themselves as not well equipped to deal with the issue of competency. And so there's a bit of a not in my backyard thing. Probably New Hampshire Hospital is more often a more appropriate place. But there are other states that this study group is studying a model for how they work with defendants in the criminal justice system that are undergoing competency. And some of it is that there's treatment for your mental health condition. And then there's also some best practices around competency, like reassessing that and educating them about the court system and the legal system. And
We did it to treat them, if they're incompetent in their illness.
where
Or just helps.
the bigger issue is their mental health symptoms, the fact that although they're often paranoid about the legal system, and that carries over to us as an extension, so that's sometimes part of what's happening. They're like unwilling to see their attorney as an ally. And they're not able to work very well with us. And for us, some of them, we can stabilize them and do pretty well, but when they're not in population, they're basically in lockdown. Other than the amount we can free them up to have some day room time, beyond, the 1 hour day. And that varies depending on how many inmates are on the unit. And staffing, and it's often dangerous for them to be in general
That's my point.
population.
If they're truly incompetent. Mental issues, we're treating them as an inmate who is here. Who is competent in being as an inmate. That kind of outcome. It doesn't seem to make sense.
It's a very difficult,
So we can't,
situation, yeah.
you can't depart from.
The norms of being in jail, yeah. Yeah, and it's a real struggle. So I spend a lot of time with them, as much as I can to try to support them and help them cope while they're here. But we can only do so much, and, you know, every case is different. There's one inmate here that was here for a year and he refused medication. We can't force medication, so he went through this whole competency, restorability, and then was found not restored because nothing changed here whatsoever. He never chose to take medication. He just kind of, you know, maintained that status quo. His baseline is psychotic, and so it seems like a,
You know, at the end of the day, it's just the the continuing of criminalizing mental illness. And of course, it is a lame and empty excuse for the state hospital, the state psychiatric hospital, to suggest that they're not well suited or well equipped to handle mental illness, for Christ's sake. I just don't understand it. And it's just easier to keep them in a county jail. So the whole argument is just preposterous, and it always has been.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear the testimony as strong as the case they were making, that they weren't very well equipped to take these people. Although I think they would admit they're of the existing physical placements, and sometimes people can be released, you know, to the community, go through a competency process and a restorability process in the community if there's not significant safety issues, but where they need to be held, probably New Hampshire Hospital would admit they are more often appropriate place than the jails or the secure psychiatric unit.
Sure, of course.
Which, you know, the secure psychiatric unit is for significant violence, and for some of them that are very violent, that is more appropriate than New Hampshire Hospital.
and that's an easier process, actually. A lot easier for me to get them in SVU, believe it or not. And I think New Hampshire Hospital just has a very long wait list. You know, it generally takes a couple weeks to get anyone in the queue, and it's just more short term because they're just that revolving, you know, cycle of work.
Yeah, it has been a discussion that is literally 30 years old. And the state continues to do nothing but find excuses and then set up another study committee.
Right.
There are, just to try to be positive, the wait times are significantly improved in the last 1 year to 2 years,
Yeah,
1 year.
yeah. That's
Getting into New Hampshire Hospital, the number of people's backed up in ERs is down. They have added beds, but it's frustratingly slow, and there are still many issues systemically, so. But just to share that.
No, I understand. I appreciate they've done a little bit after 30 years of dodging the bullet. But as you might guess, I'm not satisfied with their response.
Well, a few minutes ago, you mentioned prescribers for psychiatric medications.
Yeah.
And are you referring to Dave Siegel and Andy Trimley? And I noticed Andy's here today. We walked in together. And, or do you have access to a psychiatrist such as Mindy Ashbury, who is fabulous? Do you know her?
not personally, but I know of her. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you have access to a psychiatrist?
No. No, Dave is a physician's assistant,
Yes.
so.
Mhm.
You know, he's great, he's been here forever and we have a great relationship, but he does not have the psychiatric expertise, neither does Dr. Tremblay. So a psychiatric nurse practitioner is definitely needed. It would be very helpful.
That's what you.
So, yeah, so when we asked for that, and the model that we've had at Cheshire County goes back 25 years with Barnes, with Peterson and Danielle's role, Dave working with Danielle as a liaison between a general practitioner. It was a different time and place. The acuity and complexity was different then. And that is, and it also was flagged, as I mentioned, it's not anything we outright failed in the National Commission of Correctional Healthcare review. But they were flagging it as concern that we were still trying to have a general practitioner manage these very complex mental health cases and the medications that are specific to
So
them.
with your extensive background, is it possible or is it practical for you to be diplomatically suggesting to Dave or to Andy, medications which might be helping a certain individual, or shouldn't I ask?
I have a lot of experience with Medicaid. I used to work at Hayward Hospital with a psychiatrist who taught me what I know, and then I also farmed. So
Mhm.
ethically, according to my licensure, and those rules, they would probably say, no.
Mhm.
However, there's this piece of, do I feel confident in what I'm recommending? And do I have the experience? And the answer is yes. So it's always been a very gray area where I would never do anything that I feel is unethical. I'm very confident in what we do here. I think we do it very well. Like Doug said, we've had the same model. I learned from Barnes, who did it for 20 years before me. We are able to stabilize most of the inmates here. We only have, these 5 people that we sometimes can't, even though they take up a lot of time. Most people, we are able to. But I do worry that we're getting to that. The acuity is rising so much that sometimes I feel, like it would be helpful to have someone else with the expertise to consult with, rather than.
Are psychiatric nurse practitioners available in the area?
Well, I think there is a few people that, that I've talked to, through Cheshire Med, who would be willing to do like a part-time gig of some sort, kind of similar to the model that I have with Dave. I would keep meeting with them, doing the assessments, and then kind of reserve a certain amount of slots for that person to see
Great.
through the 10 hours or whatever, however many hours.
There are potentially, a few people that Danielle, Dr. Tremblay and I sat down a few months ago, and he had suggested a few possible people if we ended up having this approved. The suggestions from Danielle about meds are suggestions. Ultimately, Dave's prescribing. Where I and Danielle, I think, grow uncomfortable with it is the amount of face-to-face time that Dave has with some of these more complex even people is not it's not enough. It's not gonna withstand, like, not to be dramatic, but if there was a lawsuit and it got looked at, that he had the amount of face-to-face time he's getting, because it just,
I understand.
it's.
And before we finish up, I would like to ask about the MAT program as well, but we should probably continue this discussion first.
Anything more on this? So MAT, now called MOUD,
I know.
but that's okay. The numbers are holding fairly steady nowadays. Out of 110 inmates, there's probably 45-ish, 45 that are on one form or another of MOUD. A large majority Suboxone, 4 to 5 going to Metro for methadone, I think. Not increasing anymore, which is good. I'd say we've held at that about 40% of the population for maybe as much as a year.
And that I have the LADAC, so it's a dual license, so I am able to assess for the Suboxone and make recommendations related to it. I just can't prescribe. So, yeah, so that's going
Do
well.
we have any further information on long-term follow-up, which that can be about years?
How they do down the road.
Yes.
We don't.
For the English, but I mean, mod,
Medication for opiate use disorder.
so that differs from people who just general medication.
Yeah, they changed it from medication assisted treatment to MOUD based on the research showing that even when persons with an opioid use disorder choose only medication, they still have better outcomes than not. Although being in both traditional counseling and recovery services and the medication, there are better. That's the best. It's where it was called medication assisted because it was sort of seen as an adjunct to counseling and recovery services. And so I think the main reason that MOUD is used is to not imply that it always must go together.
When the person is incarcerated on it, do they continue on it throughout the duration of the hospitalization, or for the people who had not previously been on it? I believe we started a week or two before anticipated discharge.
No, now we start them right when they come in.
You continue it, oh,
Either we continue it if they were taking it consistently before coming in, or most of them have not, because they've been using. So we'll restart them right away.
okay. So if they're going to be here for 3 months,
Mhm.
they will start in the first week.
Yeah.
Not just before discharge, which was the case.
We used to
Yes.
do that. And we had the ACLU threaten to file a suit
Yeah.
about this,
Yeah.
and we researched it extensively. And we agreed to make it. The right thing to do based on the research was start them, even if there was a risk of diversion into the inmate population, which there is, even if they were not going to go from jail to the community, but rather jail to a prison setting. If they have opioid use disorder and they wish to be on that medication, then they're going to pretty much be on that
But
medication.
if they don't wish to be on it, they don't have to.
No, don't have.
Yeah, there are a couple.
And of that 45, what is the average for feds?
Well, gee,
Yeah. So,
And the feds cover that cost?
yeah.
So it's just the locals that were,
working.
okay.
And the Suboxone doesn't cost too much money in and of itself for us to stock it in. There's more cost associated with transporting them out repeatedly to Keene Metro, even though thankfully it's a smaller number of inmates, but we choose, if they're on, we allow them to stay on methadone, and on methadone. And we don't switch them, or we don't force them to switch over to.
Is that a local, more local issue, the methadone issue? Then that's,
The feds are, if they come in on methadone, we bring them.
but we get billed for that, we can bill for that too, right? Okay. I just like to make sure when I look at it, because a lot of times I'm asked about, why are we taking federal inmates in? Well, we have the ability to do that with the numbers that we have, foremost. And federal inmates, we get a rate. We get a rate for transportation, work on those rates, I get it. But they also cover medical, and they have a medical issue. They cover any of these, other issues that come up.
Yeah.
Whereas with local, we're paying their medical, we're paying for any other side
They go out for outpatient ER visits, dental care, the feds pay all of those things, thankfully.
But the feds don't generally come in on that for that one, and they have to be
Yeah,
more
that's what I thought.
local, yeah, to King Clinic.
Okay,
Anything else, or anything else that I didn't touch on?
No. Very interesting presentation.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you for having
thank
me.
you.
Yeah. Thank you. All right.
Nice to meet you.
You as well. All of you. Have a good day.
All right. I'm gonna move on. Well, no, Jack is here, so I can continue to go. Really, mine is gonna be really short this week because it's either been budget, personnel issues. Not much outside of that. I will tell you that revision will be here. We don't have a meeting next week. Because we're up in, where is that exact?
Like, I'm blanking.
I don't know the town it's in. I know it's White Mountain, resort there, but I mean, it's the Omni.
Not Bethlehem. Brett.
It's, you know, it's just a courtesy.
You're too young to not know.
He's coming, they're coming the following week. Yeah, about solar credits. It's, that's what they're coming about. They're gonna talk about solar credits. Actually, we think we may be able to get a better rate with revision than we have with the hydro. If that was the case, I've already had, our attorney, I looked at it, then I had our attorney look at it. What we would have to do to get out of the hydro contract to generate more revenue from the solar contract.
Thank you.
So they're gonna come and talk about that. That's what they're coming.
Thank you.
Okay, the hydro. Mr. Freedom.
Good, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you. So that's where we're at. And we're working on orientation. And we're looking at the first 2 weeks of December. Nothing's finalized yet because we didn't know what the population was gonna be that we're working with. Now by the end of the day, I think we'll have a clear understanding of who the elected officials are that are gonna be joining us. We open this up not just to new, but everyone that wants to, and we're doing it in the past. We went to 1 day and we told people, set up visits with the nursing home and with DOC, and now we're saying 2 days. And we're having a road trip on 1 day and then all the other departments on the day of the commissioners pass over a budget like we did in years past. That way they can come in, they can hear stuff, they can get their pictures taken, they can go in, hear the commissioners discuss why the budget is where it's at. And then they can pass it over to the executive committee. The executive committee will meet after that meeting to really establish when they're going to be meeting. That's it. And here a quarterly report, I'm guessing. So that's what we'll be doing. And once we'll finalize in the next week, the day, but it looks like the first Tuesday of December, and the second Monday of December. So the reason it's not the first Monday of December is because the lawsuit, opiate lawsuit trust fund group meets on that day, and I want to be part of that meeting. So
First one.
it's the second Monday, it's the first Tuesday, second Monday.
Should be December 2nd.
Third minute.
Yeah. So. And we'll finalize that. As and we just need to know who's in the majority. Because usually they need a copy, they should make copies at some point, and the chair likes to take those back, so. Go from there. And like I said, we have personnel issues. We do have two non-publics today for personnel issues. And we will be coming to you in the very near future for non-meeting. Because we're close to being ready to start talking about union negotiations, where we are in the union negotiations. I think 2 out of the 3, I think we could get done really quickly, in theory. I think they're not, I think we just have to finalize a few different things, and I think we'll do that. So, I'm not too troubled, there's a 3rd one. Beat it around a little bit. So. Yes,
Are you gonna go into non?
I am about 2 seconds.
Okay. So estimated time for tour
On that day?
today?
Oh, today? Oh, okay, today's one of the days.
Yeah.
You wanna stick around?
Yeah.
Should, you just, yeah.
Well.
Totally forgot that.
11? Think you can get,
That'd be 45 minutes.
Yeah, it might be before, but yeah.
okay, well, we're all ready if you want. Want to do it in any order. I remember you wanted to go in to spend a little time in facilities. If you do or don't, class is available,
Okay,
wherever.
All right.
Let me know. People on standby.
okay,
We have 3 to 4 inmates available and 3 or so staff and
6 months ago, really.
Yeah.
I just feel like we just did
Well,
this like,
the last one got pushed back by about 3 weeks, so it was only like.
all right, hi Kim.
Hi, Chris.
Okay, we can hear you, Ken.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Did Jack leave?
Jack did leave, actually, and Terry is not here. So
I'm not doing anything until.
Yeah.
Okay. And you haven't shut off the recording, right?
No.
No,
Yeah, you're right.
until,
Okay.
he's aware of the person's.
Okay, yeah.
At what point does she get brought into any?
Well, she's not, I mean, my thing is, I mean, technically, she's not elected yet. Till
Right,
January 1,
yeah, okay.
unless.
I was just asking the
Yeah,
question.
no, I think it's, that, I thought about it too. And it's my head, it's like, she's not an elected official, unless you guys.
What's the person?
We're in non-public, she's in incoming, but she's not sworn in yet, so I wouldn't,
No, I've done that before.
yeah. That's what I thought, so. So personnel issues, first up,
Just a motion to.
a motion that, please, a motion to go into non-public.
So moved.
All right, Commissioner England,
Aye.
Mr. Clark.
Shit.
Yeah, yes. Okay,
Say it to me, votes are actually taken.
Oh, yeah.
okay. Any old business? Oh. Any new business? Okay, consent agenda items. You know what, I just realized, do you have? I've been working off the wrong one. Do you have the schedule for today?
The agenda?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it here?
Nice.
What do you mean? We take.
Yeah.
November 6th, yes.
Here it is, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, great.
all right,
Is there
I'll interrupt you.
Sure.
The only thing I was missing.
He told me,
Yeah.
Rob said there.
All right,
Escalated costs.
so
in
vote to
regard
accept the
to
weekly
battery
meeting minutes of October 30th, 2024.
That needs to be capitalized.
Okay.
I hadn't heard
Aye.
anything.
Commissioner
other than
England?
he
Commissioner Clark.
Called me and
All right, wait 2 seconds, let me finish up here. Calendar, do you want to just go through this real quick?
Yeah, I just included those, There's no changes. That was really just the list that I put down, just so folks know what's going on between now and December.
Just take note of that, please.
Mhm.
Um,
You know,
I can, you can come.
I took the liberty of canceling.
Okay. Okay. All right, and then last but not least, motion to adjourn. Hi, Commissioner Clark, we are adjourned. Now we can do the tour. Cheryl can go on her way.
Yeah, so, so